I am so glad you convinced me that the family car should be the Defender 110. It is so beautiful inside, it's so comfortable, and it just feels indestructible.
Yes, it really is. I've been waiting a long time for the new model to come out. The Defender 110, I'm telling you, it's my favorite car of all times. It's my third one. You know, I have stories of going off road. The guy managed the group. He was like, "What are you doing in this beautiful car?" I'm like, "I'm going off road." He's like, "Are you sure? Because you can use one of ours." And then they look like Mad Max cars. I'm like, "No, no, 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 we're going to do this." And he was shocked.
Wow. Well, it's great because the Defender has been reimagined for 21st century adventure, and its unparalleled off road ability, as well as its robust interior, are invaluable whether you're headed towards uncharted territory or just a weekend of exploration. The Defender 110 tackles challenging surroundings with absolute confidence. The SUV conveys strength outside and in, featuring peerless technology like an intuitive driver display and an award-winning infotainment system. That's my favorite part, to keep you connected no matter where the journey takes you. Adventure is unique to everyone, and so is the Defender. Choose from the two-door Defender 90, the four-door Defender 110, or the larger Defender 130 with the ability to seat up to 8 passengers. You'll find uncompromising performance in all three. So pack up and go even further with the Defender 110. Learn more at LandRoverUSA.com/Defender.
These days, we're all investors, trying to be smart with our money despite our worst impulses. But at iShares, we believe that deep down inside of every investor is a better investor. One that's just waiting to be let out. Explore iShares ETFs and insights and let your best investor out. Visit iShares.com for more information.
This isn't your average business podcast, and he's not your average host. This is the James Altucher Show. Today on the James Altucher Show.
Every time I talk to Tucker Max, my life changes. This is an intense one. He wrote this post that I read called Doomer Optimism, or it was about Doomer Optimism, which he can explain what that means. And the reason I heard about the article is I saw two people in a Facebook group that I'm a member of. I saw them arguing where one person was insisting that the admin of the group kick Tucker off the group because of this article. And that's happened to me when I've had particularly controversial articles. It's always crazy when you see people explicitly trying to censor someone, a group that they were a member of for years and that everybody knew him and everything, just because of something he wrote or an opinion he had. So it's part one. And in part two, he also discusses not only the article, but what he's going to do about it. Here's Tucker. How else are things going? You're not at Scribe Media now full time.
No.
You're writing. You're enjoying life. Like what? Like I'm always curious. Like, and we'll get to the Doomer Optimism stuff in a second, or I mean, maybe this won't even be for the podcast. But I'm always curious with you because you are a super ambitious person. You're a great writer. You've done great things. And then how do you pull yourself back from ambition to say, you know what? For a while, I'm going to focus on family and friends and whatever.
It's funny. I'm going to answer your question. Let me come to it circularly a little bit. So psychedelic medicine has gone through a lot of the VC community. And of course, a lot of them are doing it wrong, et cetera. But this one girl who's like, I don't really even know who she is. I don't even know her name. I can't remember it on Twitter. But she's very pretty. So a lot of people pay attention to her. And I'm not even trying to troll her. It's just there's almost no women in that community. And none of them, very few are attractive. And so you know just how the world works. And so she wrote this long set of posts shitting on all these VCs she knew who had done psychedelic medicine. And her point was the negative thing she pointed to, it's just so amazing, was that it killed their ambition, right? And a bunch of people were like, no, it didn't kill their ambition. It woke them up and showed them how fucked up the whole system that they were in and the game they were playing was, right? And so, like, to answer your question, the way I've dealt with ambition is that I have realized especially over the last 3 years. I thought I understood this 3 years ago, but about 3 years ago is when I really went deep into. Started therapy years ago, but psychedelic medicine added to my therapeutic practice about 3 years ago, and it really got intense. And that's when I realized, oh wow, almost everything I'm doing and everything I think about that I want, and all my frames are totally, they're not mine. Fucked up or not, they're not even mine. And so the way I've dealt with ambition is to
Define frame. Like, give me an example of a frame.
okay, that I need to be rich, or that I need to make money, or that I need to be successful, or what successful is, right? These are all, another name for a frame is an assumption, right? Or a starting point, or a dogma, or a philosophy.
Or I'll give you an example from your life. I remember when we met, you had just come off the filming of I Hope They Still Serve Beer in Hell, and you were really into the Hollywood thing of like, I hope this movie is a success, and you were really disappointed when that movie didn't turn out how you had hoped.
It was way more disappointment. Yeah, but yes. But so the point is, the way I've dealt with ambition is to get to the root of it. Why am I so concerned with my success, and how am I defining success? And once I mean, dude, just answering those two questions, we could talk about for hours, days. But to sum it all, distill it down as much as possible, I realized that almost everything I considered, every assumption I had about success was not mine. It was an assumption that I had learned or taken on from the culture. And when I actually unpacked it, I realized almost none of it I actually cared about or agreed with when I really thought about it. And so then when I stripped everything away, what I was left with of the things that I actually cared about, I only really care about the things, being with the people I love, doing things that matter to them, and building a world that I want to live in. And I mean, when I say a world, I don't mean like Africa. I don't even mean like New York City. I mean like building the immediate community that I live in. And nothing else matters to me. Now, if other stuff happens, cool, great. Like, I'll take it. Like, I'm not against more conventional definitions of success or whatever. But once I really dove into all of my stuff, I realized that's the only thing that mattered to me. And everything else was bullshit.
Let me ask you this, because I agree with a large amount of that, and yet I'm still driven forward by, we're hierarchical beings.
You can transcend that.
Can you? Because look, it's 10 million years of chimpanzees having hierarchies from alpha to omega.
You're right.
Part of those metrics are either, success, i.e., followers or likes or whatever, or money, like some way in which we measure the hierarchy. And another thing about money, not wealth, but money, is that's how you build kind of the world that you want to live in to some extent. Not always, but to some extent.
Yeah, I mean, both of those are there's deep assumptions in both of those things you just said that I don't agree with, and that I don't think are true. They're stories. They're true for you because they're stories you're telling yourself. They're not true in any objective sense. So yeah, primates are clearly hierarchical beings. Our biology, it's baked in. There's no doubt about that. But the cool hack around that, or the cool frame that I learned, was that I get to decide what my hierarchy is.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with that.
Okay, but agreeing with it and actually putting it to play in your life are different things, right? Like most people don't even understand hierarchy, whatever. But even if they do, they accept hierarchies that they're either born into or that they're told are important. I have rejected all of those things. Finally. Like, it's funny you brought up Hollywood because that's a hierarchy, and I was totally bought in at that point. Even when I was in it, I thought I wasn't, but I was, of course. And now it's like, no, I don't care.
I think what's made a lot of successful people different is that they're still in a hierarchy, but they choose their own hierarchy. So like, instead of most people, for instance, want to be in the wealth hierarchy, but there's other like, I rejected the wealth hierarchy for a while. I went into stand-up comedy, or anybody who goes into the writing hierarchy is rejecting the wealth hierarchy, the traditional success hierarchy. So I think we've gone into untraditional hierarchies, but I can't say I've broken out of them.
Dude, you don't even see it. You keep saying you can pick your hierarchy, but then you keep talking about other people's hierarchies.
Okay.
Comedy has an established hierarchy that you don't have to fucking buy into. Writing
Right.
I'm the definition of writing absolutely has a standardly accepted hierarchy. I never bought into any of it. I broke it. I beat all of those motherfuckers. Never once bought into it. Never.
Yeah.
Same
Yeah.
with publishing, right? Never once bought into it, right? Instead, I built my own, right? That is the thing with hierarchy, is that defining your own is the first step to transcending it. Then really, you can actually transcend it. Truly, you can.
I always felt the way I would always put it, and maybe this is not the way I should have been thinking about it, but I would always be interested in diversifying hierarchies. So I had more than one. So if one is not working out, I have others that I'm diversifying into. But you're right. Maybe they're all standard though.
That's a great strategy if you're just trying to make yourself super miserable.
Maybe that's what's happened.
No, and I'm not.
By the way, I've never seen you laugh so much either. So clearly something good's happening.
Well, no, I'm not trying to shit on you, man. It's just think, okay, I'm going to be in a bunch of different hierarchies is a really good way to have to monitor what a bunch of different people think of you. And then fit into their
That's
categories
true.
of what matter. It's like, oh God, I can't imagine a worse way to make myself miserable, or a more effective way than I need to measure myself by 10 different scales instead of one, right? No. The step beyond that, if you ever choose to take it, James, is to decide you are going to create your own hierarchy. And then the step beyond that is to let go of all hierarchies.
So let me ask you a question. How do you choose? And look, I defined the word choose yourself, or I coined it for my book at least, which you helped with. How do you really start from scratch choosing your own hierarchy?
Man,
And what hierarchy are you in?
it's a great question. The hierarchy I'm in, how
Yeah.
well am I living up to the best version of myself possible?
Okay.
That's how I measure myself. Like literally today, I took my kids to town. We ran some errands, did some fun stuff. And at every moment, I'm not asking myself, am I a good parent? Because now how you define good is depending on what hierarchy you're in. I'm asking myself, am I honoring the commitments I've made to my children? And am I being the best version of myself possible? That's the only hierarchy I measure myself on. The voluntary commitments I have entered into and my belief about myself.
So when's there been a time when you felt you slipped on your own hierarchy? Because I feel the best way
Every
to define
day.
a positive is to look at a negative.
Every day.
All right.
Dude.
All right.
Dude, I mean, I'd love to sit here and tell you that I'm a perfect parent. Wouldn't that be awesome? I'd love to be that. I'm not, right? So like this morning, my son, my youngest, Deacon, he did something and I got upset and I yelled at him and I snapped at him and then he got upset and all. I made a commitment to my kids not to snap and yell at them, right? I screw up all the time, man. It's like it's a difficult thing for me sometimes, like because they're real good at pushing buttons, man. My kids are experts at finding my buttons and just hitting them repeatedly, dude. They're so good at it.
I mean,
right?
that's the only thing kids get good at the first 5 years of their life. Like that's the only thing. Everybody, I always view that every human being is a scientist. Well, for kids, for babies up to 5 years old, you're their only laboratory.
They're masters at it. Mine are amazing, and so, but the way I get upset in the moment, and then I'm like, okay, hold on, like I'm being upset, and then obviously in our family we have a saying: everyone makes mistakes. All you have to do is say you're sorry and clean it up, right? So apologize, or make it right, and then I realize, hey, listen, the fact that I'm getting angry at them, what's the saying? Triggers are teachers. Okay. I'm getting angry at them means that there is work here right now for me to do. Right? And now the other side of it is I actually was half proud of myself because there were like 4 or 5 things that happened that normally would have set me off that I was able to take a step back from and not get upset. And then it was like the 6th thing that like Bishop or Deacon did. I was like, all right, that's it.
Yeah,
Like,
they're not going to rest until they hit that button.
well,
But let me ask you this too, because this
I don't
related
think
to
he's
hierarchy.
doing it on
Yeah.
purpose. It's not him. It's not. That's what a very codependent or very toxic
Yeah.
dynamic. He's 2.5, man. He's totally focused on himself. Like I'm not even a separate being to him. I exist only for to serve him in his own mind, right? So that's why I'm never upset at him. Like he's fussing because he has a need he needs to meet, and he's learned this is the way he's going to get it, and so now I've got to deal with that. You know.
So Tucker, here's another question related to it is, when's the last time you did something you didn't really want to do, but you felt like somehow obligated to do it? Because this is related to the ambition thing as well.
I mean, are we counting like I had to pay property tax?
No, not stuff like that, which is like, but like, for instance, going to a conference that you didn't really feel like speaking at, or,
No,
I mean,
no.
not
I don't
that
do that shit
example,
anymore.
but
It's been a long time.
all right, good. Yeah, I would say for me as well, but then I always sit back and wonder, well, maybe I should have, I do the should have thing.
Well,
Like,
I mean,
instead
okay,
of
all right.
doing a past year and a half of studying chess, for instance, maybe I should have started new businesses or blah, blah, blah.
So one of the, this actually might be really helpful for you. One of the things I've done, especially over the last year, is really focused on places in my life where I have shame-based thinking or shame-based words. Should have is a great one. Should have according to who?
Right.
Oh, no, but seriously, you've said should have. I wish I like in 15 minutes we've been on. I bet you've said it at least 5 times.
Okay, because I should have according to me. Like, and I do agree that it's a bad word.
No, it's not a bad word. It depends how you're using it, right? Shame-based.
I'm using it poorly.
Well, see, but look, and that's now you're judging yourself, right? So like,
I am, yes.
self-judgment and shame-based language are amazing indicators of underlying issues to deal with if you're willing to actually look at it, right? Like my mother-in-law is like this. She's a wonderful, incredible woman in so many ways, but man, she is so fucking hard on herself, and she uses so much shame-based language, and usually about herself. It used to be about others, and she's done so much psychedelic work and therapy, and she doesn't really do it to others that much anymore. It's just all on herself now, and you can see the way she talks about herself. And you're very similar. Like I can't ever think of times you've ever shamed anyone or judged anyone else. Like very rare. That was very, very rare to come.
Yeah.
And you do it to yourself, though, dude. I mean, you heap that shit on yourself. It's crazy.
Well, I remember how we first contacted each other. It was like over a decade ago. I was having a quote unquote Twitter fight with somebody who was bashing one of my books when she also even admitted she hadn't even read it. She just didn't like the title. and you wrote me out of the blue. We had never spoken before. You wrote me out of the blue and said, why are you having a Twitter fight with this useless person and who's not even in the same category? And, blah, blah, blah. It was a very encouraging letter. And then we got in touch and got to know each other very well. But you've been reminding me of this for a decade.
Well, whenever you decide to actually turn and look at it, man, you may find dealing with this stuff always sucks at first. It's never fun. But the other side, what's through it, is usually, at least in my experience, well worth it. I mean, ask yourself, what would your life be like if you were able to, say, turn down your shame and self-judgment, let's say 30%? What would your life be like?
I think it's not necessarily shame and self-judgment. It's like, I wonder why other people will try to judge. I feel bad when other people are inaccurately judging me or shaming me. And then of course I fall into it with it, which
would
is
not bother you if you didn't have that doubt yourself.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I do think that it's an insecurity of mine since childhood that unless I achieve
Where
X,
do you
Y,
think
and Z.
insecurities come from, my brother?
Yeah, I'm sure they come from
deeply
that's always happened.
internalized shame.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love these clothes. Mizzen and Main. That's Mizzen and Main. It really is the most comfortable work clothes. Travel clothes. I had to travel this whole week. I'm traveling for a week and a half, and I just took Mizzen and Main clothes with me. Close out 2023 in style with comfortable, breathable, packable, and machine washable pieces from Mizzen and Main. As you wrap up your year-end goals, enjoy a Mizzen and Main dress shirt that you can wear confidently. I like that they've very, very just nice, solid colors. I don't really like to get all fancy in patterns and everything, although they do have some pattern shirts, but very comfortable clothes, stretchable pants. It's just super comfortable, but they look professional and you can wear them casually or professionally. I like some of their flannel shirts or untuck shirts. I love untuck. I never tuck in. So again, whether you're shopping for a special someone or giving yourself the gift you really want, I just buy myself gifts. Mizzen and Main is the perfect gift for any guy who works, travels, and or cares about looking and feeling great. As you could tell by my many photos across the internet, I care about looking fantastic. I'm practically a model. And let's be honest, every guy loves to look great. So again, shop now at mizzenandmain.com and save 20% when you spend $130 or more using promo code James. That's promo code James at Mizzen and Main, Mizzen and Main.com. You know what I love about fantasy sports is that even though I'm not going to be a great basketball player or a baseball player or a football player or whatever, I feel like I get to participate and make decisions and use my knowledge of these different leagues to or these different sports to compete. So it's like I can pick my team or I can pick my favorite players and I could use my knowledge to make predictions and maybe even make money. So with the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League on Prize Picks. This is a league created specifically for combo projections that include two or more players from different sports or leagues. Want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz, who's also been a guest on this podcast, and I've been a guest on his? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries for some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. Look, Prize Picks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. What? So I love playing it. I love anywhere where I can use analytical ability with my interests to demonstrate some skill and maybe make some money. And I like the game-like aspect. I do wish they had chess as a category on prizepicks.com, but I'll settle for what they've got. Maybe I should make my own fantasy chess league. But in any case, I love Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/James. Use code James for a first deposit match up to $100. That's the easiest $100 you're ever going to make. So that's prizepicks.com/James and use code James. Daily fantasy sports made easy. The future of learning is definitely online. Like it's such BS that you have to spend $200,000 or take $200,000 in loans and go to some fancy school when it's useless. It doesn't guarantee you a job. Most employers, including me, do not care about degrees or grades or anything like that. We want to care that you love what you're doing, that you know what you're doing, in some cases that you have experience or that you're willing to learn. But people in general love learning and are curious. Like the key to success is curiosity. And I think masterclass.com is the perfect model for online learning. I'm really happy they're sponsoring this episode. If you're going to give a gift, give the gift of learning. Masterclass makes a meaningful gift this season for you and anyone on your list because both of you can learn from the best to become your best, from leadership to effective communication to cooking. Let me tell you some of the classes I've taken. I've taken comedy from Steve Martin. I mean, can you believe I can take a class from Steve Martin on comedy, or Judd Apatow, my favorite comedy director? I could take an actual class from him on writing. Wolfgang Puck on cooking. Dan Brown on writing, or Judy Bloom, who's been on this podcast, on writing. By the way, Wolfgang Puck also has been on this podcast. It's such a pleasure. I try to take classes all the time from masterclass.com. And whether you're watching Masterclass on TV or listening in audio mode in the app or on their site, the quality speaks for itself. It's like these Masterclass instructors are your own personal mentors that are going to help you reach the next level. How much would it cost to take one-on-one classes on comedy from Steve Martin or on chess from Gary Kasparov? You just wouldn't be able to do it. But it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. With a Masterclass annual membership, it's $10 a month. Memberships start at $120 a year for unlimited access to one-on-one classes with all 180 plus Masterclass instructors. So it's not just $120 for one instructor. You get all 180 plus Masterclass instructors. Boost your confidence and find practical takeaways you can apply to your life and at work. And if you own a business or are a team leader, use Masterclass to empower and create future-ready employees and leaders. That's the real education in today's world. So this holiday season, you can give one annual membership and get one free at masterclass.com/JAS. JAS, of course, stands for the James Altucher Show. So right now you can get 2 memberships for the price of one at masterclass.com/JAS. Masterclass.com/JAS. Offer terms apply. So, Tucker, let this in a roundabout way, this brings us into doomer optimism, which you've written about. I had never heard the term before, actually, until a few weeks ago when I heard it from you. And one thing I will point out is that rather than, I read your article about doomer optimism, and then I saw on Facebook something really weird, which is that someone who reposted your article got shamed himself for reposting your article.
Yeah,
and then I know it's a good article. Like I've written I've written articles where people have then contacted me and told me they were unfriended for reposting my article. So then I know, like, why would someone unfriend somebody else for reposting someone else's article? So I said, and obviously I knew this was interesting because you and I have spoken about these topics, and I very much agree with them. But first off, you define doomer optimism in the very beginning of your article.
The shit's gonna hit the fan, but if we all do our work, we're gonna be okay.
Yeah. And so what led you to, and then by the way, then you start painting this horrific scenario over the next few years, and then you start the optimistic side, which is also how you personally are dealing with it and preparing yourself, not prepping yourself, but preparing yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What led you up to this?
Look. It's when people ask me that, I'm always like, have you been paying attention the last 2 years? Because all kinds of shit happened. Like,
look, I agree with you. I was doing Instagram lives about these topics in March 2020, but it was because I personally was scared. Like, I didn't like what I was seeing. Not only, of course, the pandemic was scary, as you pointed out in the beginning of your article, but then suddenly how easily people capitulated to policies that might have been incorrect, but they just capitulated without asking.
Rolled over is the term I would use. I mean, dude, like I am watching Australia and cannot believe how quickly and completely a country of supposedly free Westerners rolled the fuck over. Like,
what's going on in Australia?
They have prison camps for non-vaccinated. People are like, no, they're quarantine camps. Motherfucker, you're not allowed to leave. Like, they're prison camps. If you leave, they chase you down and arrest you and bring you back. They are prison camps.
Is that really true? I have not heard about it.
It's all over. Well, it's not all over the mainstream news because, of course, they're not going to talk about that. Dude, I mean, go. The Australian government doesn't even hide it anymore, actually.
Oh, yeah,
That's my favorite. There's all kinds of stuff about it. Yeah. No, I mean, as far as I know, and as far as anything I've seen, they're not death camps yet. My guess is, this sounds fucking horrible, and God knows I don't want this to happen, the thing I always say, people, it's so funny. I talk to people about this, like, oh, but no, this and that. And I'm like, okay, so if they turn into death camps, is that when you're going to wake up and realize what's going on? And like, well, I'm like, okay, so death camps are okay for you. Is that it? That's not crossing the line. Like, I always try and figure out with people, what's the line for them? Is it prison camps for people with COVID or unvaccinated are not the line? What if they're death camps? Is that the line?
It's interesting because in 2015, a law was not passed but considered in New York State. You could Google it. It's called A416, and it basically says the governor, at his or her discretion, could detain someone indefinitely if they view them as a threat to public health.
Well,
and
hold
of
on,
course,
didn't
the
that
law
law
wasn't.
just get proposed just recently in New York, like a couple months ago?
No, that's the interesting thing. It was 2015, but now it's being brought up again. The same law.
Exactly. Again, yeah, right.
And now people are saying, oh, yeah, that might be reasonable. So because of everything that's happened, where, of course, back in 2015, nobody considered it unreasonable. And so it's the trend that is scary to me.
So this seems like such an easy solution to me. Why don't we just have a couple of places where people are all in for any form of tyranny as long as it gives them whatever safety they think they're getting from it? And if that's your orientation, cool, then California, New York, Illinois, whatever places decide that they're going to be tyrannies for safety, or however you want to frame it, cool, go there, move there, go. And everyone else who's like, no, I want freedom. Yeah, maybe there's risk to it. Cool, but I don't care. Then you come to Texas and Florida and the South or whatever, right? Like, we can still be America. We just have different states that are going to have completely different orientations to life, liberty, and happiness. Great. Go put your fucking mask on. And go live in your pod and eat the bugs and do what these sociopaths tell you. As long as you're not fucking trying to tell me what I have to do, I don't actually give a fuck. Like, seriously, I don't care.
I've had this conversation on the podcast with two very smart, educated people. One was a constitutional expert. The other was someone you and I both know very well. One guy pointed out that in the Constitution, it does say life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I said, well, isn't the forced shutting down of every single business in the country against the fact you can't deprive people of their right to make a living without due process? And he said, no, because in the Constitution, life comes first. And I didn't really have an argument for that.
I can make up a bunch of shit too, right? That it doesn't make it true. That's fucking nonsense in no way, shape, or form. It's sort of like people who say, my favorite of the misreadings of the Constitution are the people who are like, oh, well, the Second Amendment only applies to organized militias, the military, so people shouldn't have guns. No, motherfucker, that's not only is that not at all the framers' intent, but literally the words don't say that. Literally, they don't. They say, here's the easiest way to understand the Second Amendment. I'm going to paraphrase it. Because a nation needs to have a standing army, and that standing army has guns and is dangerous, individuals not in the army need to have guns as well. That's what it fucking says. That's what it means. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are not a ranked triplex. It's not. It's absolutely not. If anything, America and all of its founding principles were antithetical to putting life above freedom. That is the opposite of why America was founded. That is the opposite of the principles that this country stands for. But look, if someone wants to fucking die for climate change or for COVID, I don't fucking care. As long as they don't try and take me with them, I'm good. Go fucking kill yourself. Go live in your fucking pod. Go surrender. I don't care. Just leave me alone.
So like in your article, you give a timeline of how you started to feel that the shit was going to hit the fan. And in March 2020, you mentioned you were initially for the lockdowns. I think we were probably both equally scared of where it could lead. I'm more always worried about slippery slopes because I would look at a furniture store What? Nobody was ever in a furniture store. Why does it need to close down for COVID? It's not like there's a lot of people crowding. And I use this as an example of furniture store, but it's not as if
Right.
like people are crowding wall to wall in the furniture store. Like, get me that chair. So like, I always wondered, why do you include restaurants and furniture stores and, weddings all in the same category? That this could be dangerous when you're just shutting everything down, and everyone was shaming everyone else. Like, in the same time, I would ride my bicycle in Central Park and people would shout out, wear a mask. And you can't transmit it outdoors. And B, it's not like I'm spinning on anybody.
There's no one else there. No, my
Right.
favorite are the people still to this day. You still see them sometimes wearing a mask in their car alone driving.
Right.
Talk about the ultimate sign of submission. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Or here's the thing too. I was just in Las Vegas and you have to wear a mask, but then you go to an action and you have to social distance. There's signs everywhere. But then you see a blackjack table and everyone's drinking, so no one's wearing a mask and they're all sitting right next to each other. So the exact spot where you should be doing it is when you're not doing it, and everybody was just walking around social distancing. And they're all wearing fake masks anyway. Like, everyone's just wearing these like
The face
masks
shield
with holes in
things.
them.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Or they're wearing like
Panties.
yeah, exactly, like nothing. So it does start to get crazy. And by the way, everyone's got COVID now anyway. So like everybody I know has Omicron at this point. So what started to really trigger things for you?
Yeah, I don't know if there was one event, man. Honestly, like I'll admit, like I was fooled in March, like totally. And then by April, though, it's like there's a playbook for dealing with pandemics. It's existed for a long time, and nothing anyone was doing was by that playbook. Like, lockdowns have never been part of the playbook. That's fucking nonsense. They don't work, as evidenced by the last 2 years. By the way, if you think they fucking work, then bless your heart. Because at that point, facts obviously don't matter to you. But lockdowns were never part of it. Masks were never part of it.
Although you can't ever prove a negative. Like, if you say that to someone, they'll say, well, it would have been 10 times as many deaths if we didn't do the lockdown.
Well, they can say anything. I can say I'm 7 feet tall and black. It doesn't fucking make it true, man. Like, just because someone says something, who gives a shit? Fuck them. Like, I don't care.
Yeah, true.
But dude, there has been a playbook that has been used for 100 years for actual pandemics. Whether it works or not, who knows? But like, there was one that everyone agreed, World Health Organization, whatever. This is and then all of a sudden, literally, not right before, but like during, like, nope, we're not doing this. It didn't, and that immediately started setting off yellow flags. And then the reversal on masks came really quick. And then all kinds of other weird shit happened where I'm like, okay, this doesn't make sense. If this is actually a serious public health emergency, then nothing that is going on makes sense with that. Now, looking back, if what you have is a small group or a small set of groups of powerful people whose goal is to cripple or destroy America, then everything makes sense. Now it's like, okay, look at what's happened in the last 2 years and ask yourself, from what perspective does this make sense? That's really the only one. Now, I'm not talking about a lot of what's happened are just low-level sociopaths in power who don't want to give up their power, right? Which is a whole different thing. Like, I seriously doubt like some New York City commissioner is in any sort of international plot of anything. No, they're just the type of idiot who goes into government because they want power over people. And now they see, oh, pandemic gives me power, I'm never going to let this go. That's a different situation. But like, if you look at like everything that's happened, none of it makes sense from any other perspective, man. It's so funny too to watch like so many people who I used to think of as pretty reasonable and logical for a year and a half try and grapple with what none of these policies make sense. What about this? What about that? And they refuse to see, oh, wow, maybe my model for why policymakers or why people in charge are making decisions is wrong. Like people like Eric Weinstein or Sam Harris or all these fucking people who like, it's like, wow, man, I thought you people were smart. You're actually fucking stupid. Like, you can't see a fucking con right in front of you. It's obvious. maybe it's just because I understand media. Maybe I've been on that side of media for so long and I've seen behind the curtain for so long. I just know what it looks like. And this is the most I've ever seen of anything that's an actual fucking, just a fraud and a con. I mean, how many examples do you need? How many I mean, okay, if you, maybe the whole COVID thing, you can be like, all right, I get it. Fine. Like, things can happen. You can make arguments. But then George Floyd thing, man, like I said in the piece, man, that video was so gut wrenching, dude. I fucking cried watching. That's horrible. And then riots started everywhere, right? And the best part, like, you can't beat that cry-on from CNN, where it's like the black reporter standing in front of the fire saying mostly peaceful protests.
Right.
And come on, stop it. Like, the mainstream media tried to sell you that these riots were peaceful protests. It's like, you're going to believe me or your lying eyes? Right? So, right, do you want to keep going? Like, how many more lies do you like, there's some that are like borderline, like COVID early, maybe you could say is borderline. You can maybe make a good case. Okay, election. That's why I don't even want to talk about the election, because it's so fucked up. And there's so many religious dogmatists on the other side with the election stuff. There's so many people who are like, Donald, like, they think Donald Trump is some saint. I'm like, he's a narcissistic fucking asshole. Even if you did like him as a president, he didn't give a fuck about you. And so it's like, eject the things that are borderline. The summer 20 riots, the January 6th insurrection, keep going. There's some that are just unarguable.
Let me ask you this, because obviously, right, like you said, the George Floyd video was horrific. Somebody needed to speak out about many things there. But at the same time, you would have 20,000 people gather for a protest, and they didn't need to wear masks. They didn't need the social distance.
Right,
and meanwhile,
exactly.
Uptown, a restaurant would be shut with outdoor dining would be shut down in the exact same city. Or what got me was in Seattle. I think it was in Seattle where they had the their own zone. There was the
autonomous zone, Chaz.
Yeah. And teenagers. There were 2 teenagers that died
Murdered.
in that zone, murdered. And the guy who was, like, quote unquote in charge of that zone, he's like selling T-shirts on the web right now. Like, how come there's no charges? There's nothing. Like, he wouldn't let police or hospitals, ambulances come through. Like, I don't understand why there's such obvious hypocrisy and people did not see. And I know this eventually leads to what becomes doom or optimism, but why didn't people call it out then? It frustrated me.
So it gets back to what you talked about at the very early part of this podcast is hierarchy, right? The one of the embedded parts of hierarchy is identity, right? Like, if I care about the writer hierarchy, it's because I identify as a writer, right? And so there are so many people in this country, everywhere. It's not just America; it's just everywhere. But like, whose identity is tied into, well, I'm this type of person, or I'm that type of person, or I'm in this group. And I mean, one of the only long-standing and replicable results in psychology is that people will ignore facts to preserve their either sense of self or identity, right? And so, yeah, most people, I thought I understood how brainwashed most people were before 2 years ago. I was wrong. I was way wrong, man. I had no idea. There are so many people James, if I'd made a list of the smartest, freest thinking people I knew, like, let's say the top 50, you would have been on that list. You'd have been somewhere, right? Probably at least the top half.
I appreciate that.
Right? So of that list of 50, right now, I'd say maybe 20 are still on the list.
What would you see from the 30 that fell off? What did you notice?
They are so embedded in the standard, whatever you want to call it, the standard institutional narrative, that they will literally ignore facts. They will ignore what their eyes see. They will literally ignore what they see and believe a lie so that they can stay in that group.
Like if you point out basic hypocrisy, they think they will have some rational reason why it's not hypocrisy.
No, they won't. What they'll do, they'll redirect. They'll be like, well, what about, right? And they'll talk about Trump or whatever the fuck, right? They'll redirect. They'll make an argument about something else. They'll come up with some other argument. They'll say, well, but what about this? But you forgot about this, or no. It's really, dude, I've had a couple of people who I'm close to have these conversations. They're not that hard to break. As long as you get them one-on-one, and you don't get angry, and you just like approach them with pure curiosity and just keep asking questions, what you end up doing, and I've only done this about 1,000 fucking times, is that you break their minds. Like literally, they can't, because all the facts, or at least the majority of them, are lined up against their identity. And when you just ask enough questions from the right way, and they realize they can't reconcile, they either get violent, they get angry, they refuse to talk about it, or you break them. Like, I mean, you can ask my Veronica. You know Veronica well. She's seen me do this at dinner to people, where it's like they shut down. They can't keep functioning, and they start crying. They leave. They do something like that. And I'm not talking about angry debate. Angry debate never works. If you yell at them or scream or throw facts in front of their face, then it actually makes it easy for them to defend, right?
Right.
So the opposite way, the way you get people, is that you just from a place of curiosity and kindness and softness, just keep asking. But okay, but how does that work? But why this? You can actually do that with anyone with almost anything, because virtually no one understands why they believe what they believe about hardly anything. Right. And so like you can do that. Like it's a very easy technique to use if you just like, there have been times in my life where like I have to be honest, like I'll be talking to some person, I don't like them, and I'm like, all right, fuck this, I'm gonna break them. And I just decide I'll do that, and I'll go, not even independent of the last 2 years. But like no, dude, that like just start asking them, why do you believe that? So explain that to me. Hold on, but what about this? But what about this? And just keep going. And then generally they run out of shit.
So let's do this, because I've had these conversations many times, and usually my approach is a little different than yours, which is I give up, meaning I'm not going to keep going until
I don't
they cry
start.
or break.
See, I either don't start or I finish them. Like those are my only two perspectives.
I'll only go about 10% of the way, because I'll think to myself, it's not worth it to me to go all the way with this. But let's play devil's advocate. Like I'm going to say, oh, everything was justified with the lockdowns and the vaccines and all this stuff.
Yeah, but you don't believe that. We can't role play it because you don't believe any of it.
All right. So I'm just curious, because I think the technique of breaking is interesting. It reminds me though of Peter Boghossian. I don't know if you read his book, Having Difficult Conversations, where his thing will be like, okay, I'm 60% there. Get me the other 40%. Like, it sounds interesting what you're saying. Get me the other 40%. Like, what about the fact that 20,000 people were allowed to protest, but you were still shutting down furniture stores uptown? Like, and they say, well, they were only protesting. I don't know what people would say, actually. I have no idea.
Right. See, that's why we can't role play, because you don't believe any of it, because it's bullshit.
But why was this happening? Like, why don't people see the hypocrisy? Like, if you point out the hypocrisy, no one will admit that it's hypocritical.
James, because most people, when faced with truth or group, pick group. They pick status.
But if you say, is this hypocrisy, yes or no? And they say no, when it's so obvious to anybody.
Either they'll say, dude, that's what I'm trying to explain to you, man, is that the stages of when I break them. First, they'll deny. A lot of times they'll then recognize and say, I don't care. I still believe it anyway.
Yeah, I see.
Because when faced with truth or group / status, most people pick group and status.
So what they pick also is faith, right? So faith is this ability to assert something that you don't have any proof of.
No, see, hold on. That's a little different. Belief without proof. When most people say faith, they're talking about religion, right?
Right.
But belief without proof is a different issue. Like the technique I was talking about, curiosity, doesn't actually work well on religious people. Like, it doesn't break religious people, because most of religion is made. I don't necessarily mean God or spirituality, but organized religion. It's a made up set of beliefs, right? And so like, but at the core of it, why it works, the mental hack that organized religion figured out thousands of years ago is faith, right? That you believe without proof. So that's why it always makes me laugh. Like religious people have arguments. I'm like, why even argue? You believe without proof anyway, right? So like that isn't faith a core tenet? And they'll say, yeah. I'm like, well then why are you talking about facts? You don't care about facts.
Right.
That's actually when they get angry, which is weird. But the approaching with gentle, kind, but tenacious curiosity only works on people who think they're being reasonable and rational and logical. Because that is a part of their defined self, right? And so that's what you're breaking.
Well, it's not all doom and gloom. Stay tuned for part 2.
Welcome back to our studio where we have a special guest with us today, Toucan Sam from Fruit Loops. Toucan Sam, welcome.
It's my pleasure to be here. Oh, and it's Fruit Loops, just so you know.
Fruit?
Fruit.
Yeah, fruit.
No, it's Fruit Loops. The same way you say studio.
That's not how we say it.
Fruit Loops, find the loopy side.